In Pursuit of Truth, this is your host, Sir Patrick Mac. Boys and girls, are you ready for some change we can believe in? I didn't get my change. I don't think I'm going to see it either. John, how many Q posts we got?
4.
Yes, where we last left you, Patriots, was at 34:68, 18 minutes after the hour of 4. We get this graphic right here. It's a little bit blurry here, but it is talking about basically 90% of what you see, what you read, what's on the internet. All these media groups basically are housed under these 6 umbrellas right here, being GE, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. Well, that doesn't seem very fair, does it? Fake news, consolidation, propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. Define antitrust laws. Well, Q goes on to do it for us. The Sherman Act outlaws every contract, combination, or conspiracy in restraint of trade, and any monopolization, attempted monopolization, or conspiracy or combination to monopolize. Then Q goes on to show us some more here. The FTC's competition mission is to enforce the rules of the competitive marketplace, the antitrust laws. These laws promote vigorous competition and protect consumers from anti-competitive mergers and business practices. Reconciled. And we have plus Google, plus Facebook, plus Twitter, and then Barack Hussein in the membranes catchphrase, change we can believe in. Now, I'm not sure if these pluses are in regards to George Soros, but it shouldn't be surprising as he funds a lot of those different groups, right? And then Q dials us in to this second part right here, basically talking about this FTC and antitrust laws, change we can believe in. Then we get this Twitter link right here, and Q throws in that catchphrase again, change we can believe in. And it takes you to the page of Students for Trump, at Trump Students on Twitter, who says, breaking, the DOJ has announced they're opening an antitrust probe into social media companies. And here it is right here. Justice Department reviewing the practices of market-leading online platforms. Review focuses on practices that create or maintain structural impediments to greater competition and user benefits. The Department of Justice announced today that the department's antitrust division is reviewing whether and how market-leading online platforms have achieved market power and are engaging in practices that have reduced competition, stifled innovation, or otherwise harmed consumers. The department's review will consider the widespread concerns that consumers, businesses, and entrepreneurs have expressed about search, social media, and some retail services online. The department's antitrust division is conferring with and seeking information from the public, including industry participants who have direct insight into competition in online platforms, as well as others. Without the discipline of meaningful market-based competition, digital platforms may act in ways that are not responsive to consumer demands, said Assistant Attorney General Makan Delarim of the Antitrust Division. The department's antitrust review will explore these important issues. The goal of the department's review is to assess the competitive conditions in the online marketplace in an objective and fair-minded manner, and to ensure Americans have access to free markets in which companies compete on the merits to provide services that users want. If violations of law are identified, the department will proceed appropriately to seek redress. So this is great news for all of us, anybody who spends much time online, which is likely all of you, and I'm sure many of you, of course, are conservative voices. You don't necessarily have to be a conservative voice to understand the importance of this. Big tech has long been shutting out our voices, and it's been extreme. I can tell you only just from my own experience as a content creator, not only do I deal with this every day, I deal with it every single moment of every single day, every tweet, every video. I couldn't even begin to tell you the number of experiences, and I've logged all of mine in. I've got got my own folders and stuff of screenshots of different activities, your comments, all kinds of things showing this kind of bias just for when the time is right to use it. So who knows when I'm going to unload my own can, but it looks like AG Barr is going to be doing that in addition to dealing with this Mueller report. But this is great news all the way around. And the real kicker of this is, and I would suggest bringing this point up if you are debating your friends who are simply saying, well, these are private platforms and they can do whatever they want. And normally they would be right, except for a couple big kickers. Number one, the obvious, is that unless, let's say, a group like YouTube or Facebook or whatnot, unless they actually state their rules or in their rules exactly what it is that's going to get you banned, to just go ahead and come up with these nebulous reasons for blocking and banning your videos isn't good enough because it's not stated in their rules. Now, if their rules say, hey, conservatives not allowed, then that's one thing because you know that going into it, but that's not what they're doing, is it? However, there's another even more important point, I think, is that we've discovered all this money that groups like Facebook, which we basically know is DARPA, right? This is essentially LifeLog from back in the day. This is all Pentagon funding. And we see this through groups like George Soros that's funding groups like Facebook and all these tech giants. These go through PACs and they go through all sorts of initiatives that essentially go back to our tax dollars. So if our tax dollar is funding these groups, then they don't have the right to kick us off. And that's the real kicker there. And I have a feeling that that's probably what we're going to discover in some of this investigation. And I think it's also up to patriots like yourself and myself to keep bringing that to light and really highlight that hypocrisy. At the end of the day, I think the average American, the average patriot worldwide, whether they're left-leaning, center, or whatever you want to say, I think everybody wants to have their voice heard. And it's always easy to when someone else that you don't agree with is dealing with that kind of stuff. But I think once it really comes down to them, and I'll just leave one more case in point before I get off of this topic. As many of you probably know, I'm a huge basketball fan, and so I follow some basketball channels on YouTube just because I enjoy the sport. It's kind of a nice break for me. And I noticed even one of my favorite channels who really talks about nothing but basketball was dealing with issues with YouTube also. And they're starting to wake up and realize that this is affecting all of us, and that's a big deal for you and for me. Let's move on. Post 3469, 12 minutes after the hour of 5, we get another Twitter link right here that takes you to one of our favorite patriots, Sean Corticon on Twitter at Sean Corticon. And he does a lot of great stuff, not only on Twitter, but makes great YouTube videos too. Great investigative work over there. So cheers to you, Sean Corticon, for getting a Q shout out. And he posted good stuff here. This is actually, these pictures are from W Magazine. We'll talk about that in a second. But it says right here, alleged Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre said in court filings that Epstein, MC² modeling agency founder Jean-Luc Brunel, and their associates deliberately engaged in a pattern of racketeering that involved luring minor children through MC², mostly girls under the age of 17, to engage in sexual play for money. And here is MC²'s official website. We're not going to go through that because it doesn't really look that nefarious on its surface. But I'm sure if you do enough digging, it shouldn't be hard to find. But I will point out that their offices are located in Miami, Florida, surprise, surprise, and of course, Illinois. All right, so the article that Corticon was referencing, and congratulations, Corticon, nice job getting a shout out there. This takes you to W Magazine, 16 models to watch in 2017, as predicted by Midland Agency's Rachel Chandler and Walter Pierce. In early December, Rachel Chandler and Walter Pierce of the new boutique casting and model management agency Midland had already begun preparations for the fall 2017 season. And while the pair couldn't discuss their upcoming projects in any detail, they were clear on one thing. These are the models poised to have a breakout year. See Midland's 16 models to watch in the new year, from streetcast newcomers to Midland's own signees. And if you'll remember, I read from W Magazine the other day in regards to Brooke Garber-Nedick, who was the one who co-founded Child Mind Institute, along with this sort of disgraced scientist, Harold Koplowitz. And he got busted for essentially long-term medicating all these kids. Well, what's he doing with with the Child Mind Institute. And of course, the Child Mind Institute was sitting right across the street from another person who was procuring people for Jeffrey Epstein in one Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, she doesn't live across the street anymore, but I want to point out that she was living right across the street. And here was this institute working on kids' brains with a doctor who had already gotten in trouble giving medication to kids for too long. And now we've got W Magazine also pumping this. And of course, we know Rachel Chandler is another one like Ghislaine Maxwell, who has been out there hooking everybody up. Now, I'm not going to play you this slideshow. It just shows you a bunch of faces of young models, and I'm not really interested in pumping that stuff up. It just makes me sad to watch. You have the links, and you can see it, but you get the idea. So really what we're talking about here, let's go back to the Q post. Targets models made to fill out an extensive background report. Targets models asked in detail regarding family. Targets models generally greenlit based on loner, insecurity, depressed, P evaluation. I'm assuming that's psychic evaluation. Targets, psychiatric evaluation, not psychic evaluation. Targets models generally greenlit based on humble, poor family background. Prevent possible legal retaliation. Okay, let me start right there. So look, essentially what we're looking at, and we've seen this over the really the last year and a half of sorts, we've seen that all these modeling agencies, fashion industries, they're all kind of located in the same area. And not to mention all these art collectors all seem to have this interest in whether it's big pharma somehow or some sort of neuroscience, but they're all interested in children. They all seem to have some sort of children's organization, whether it's a humanitarian organization or whether it's an adoption agency or whether it's some sort, it could be all sorts of things. Clinton Foundation had so many different things, right? But they're targeting these kids that come from weird backgrounds. That way that they can kind of make their background sort of nebulous and do whatever they want with them. And if they've come from a family that's maybe poor or sort of can't provide legal retaliation when they actually find out what's going on to their kids, then these people will not have much luck in trying to do anything. Keep in mind, people like the Clintons were high-powered lawyers. These are people who knew how to make these people's, family lives miserable. So they take these kids from poor backgrounds, not to mention, countries like Haiti. You can use Haiti as a classic example, right? And all these kids from displaced homes, poor families, whatever it might be, and they lured them into all these groups, whether it's through Hollywood, whether it's through modeling, or even if it's just through the guise of some sort of human rights organization or something like the Child Minds Institute, where they can drug these kids up, do whatever they want. And that's kind of how this whole MK Ultra sort of thing fits in, right? Not to mention they've got all these underground tunnels going around to ship them wherever they want to go through big shipping agencies like, say, maybe a Evergreen Shipping, right? Across over the seas. And that's where we get the involvement of countries like Haiti and things like that, and why we have such a problem at the border. This is a human trafficking problem, and they're taking these kids who can't fight back from families who can't fight back, and they drug them up, do whatever they want. And then, of course, if they ever need to do something like, God forbid, shoot up a school, they can always grab one of these kids, right? And they've already got them kind of trained to do whatever they want. It's horrifying, and it goes much deeper than that. That's basically the premise, right? Q says the spider web connects those most trusted, those most rich, those most powerful. Yeah, we're seeing the people that have so much power, how they're connected in this, all the different businesses, all the different complicit, whether it's restaurants, pizza places, or whatnot, art galleries, who knows? And I have a feeling that a lot of this art trade that we're starting to see is just another way of funneling money to each other. Come on, people don't really want to buy these stupid paintings for that much, do they? No, it's a great way to send millions of dollars to somebody else and probably a little something to go along with it. Safe, free, high-level security, plus max protect. Q. Yeah, we know the spider web is not just these businesses, it's the money. And of course, the literal tunnels. We were talking about spider webs out there in Syria too. All the different things that they were moving in those tunnels. President Trump just mentioned those tunnels the other day. Well, this is a big deal, and it's going to involve the highest level security plus max protect. Let's move on. I also want to point out in the last post there, 3469, the safe, free, high-level security plus max protect. That could be implying that some of these knuckleheads like Jeffrey Epstein, who they've likely been trying to either bust out or get to, are likely at the highest level security and max protection already, if you know what I'm saying. 3470, 35 minutes after the hour of 5, we get a Twitter link to Ted Cruz, who says, today I penned a letter to Attorney General William Barr, Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen, and FBI Director Christopher Wray, calling for an investigation into Antifa under the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, otherwise known as RICO. And here it is. It's a 3-page document. I will let you read it yourself, but I do want to point out a couple of parts here, particularly this part here. I likewise urge you to investigate Mayor and Police Commissioner Ted Wheeler for his official policies violating Oregonians' civil rights. And of course, that's Portland Mayor, Portland, Oregon, Ted Wheeler. Wheeler has refused to quell Antifa intimidation and riots based on his apparent sympathy with these left-wing aims. I wonder why. For example, last summer, radical left-wing activists surrounded a Portland Immigration and Customs Enforcement building, trapping federal employees inside. When those employees called Portland police, Mayor Wheeler prohibited a police response. In his capacity as police commissioner, Wheeler announced why he did not want the police to be engaged in a conflict, particularly from a federal agency that he believed to be on the wrong track. Okay, so he's spoken out a lot about the police out there. And of course, we're getting some really disturbing video also from New York. You've probably guys have seen the video of New York cops getting doused with water and whatnot. This happened in a few places. It's really, really terrible stuff. And it looks like Portland's Mayor Ted Wheeler is all about it. And of course, this seems to be a hotbed for Antifa, who is acting very much like a terrorist organization. And of course, they're quick to speak out about the Ku Klux Klan. But honestly, I don't know that I've seen a Ku Klux Klan rally in, I don't know, a long time. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's amazing how they're always talking about that, and yet Antifa is still walking around. But the idea here is really interesting. We've long known that groups like George Soros has been funding groups like this. Or how about Tom Steyer over there at Common Sense Media, which seems to be anything but. And of course, he's been teasing a presidential bid himself, likely because he's really panicked. And I'm going to talk about this in a future video too, but I also want to point out that our boy from the Weather Underground, Tom Ayers, is also funding these groups. So, there's a lot of money going into these groups, and that's how these knuckleheads get out there. They don't go starting trouble for free. And if you've seen anything about Antifa, you can see that clearly they're not expressing any kind of political views. They're there to basically crack some heads and make a whole bunch of trouble, right? That's the deal. So this RICO Act should be big, because not only will it look into Antifa, but it's likely going to look into the funding of Antifa and how people like Mayor Ted Wheeler are involved. Not just him, but he's a very clear example. And Christopher Wray was just testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee, where Senator Cruz grilled him. This is about a 9-minute video here, but ain't nobody got time for that. So I made you a montage.
Oh, it's a montage, because we ain't trying to watch the whole dang thing now.
To what extent do you see Chinese espionage in the academic world as a problem, and what more should we be doing about it?
So I'm glad you raised it. I too share your concerns in that space. There's a number of things that are going on there. One is that the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party have a number of so-called talent plans. So you hear about the 1,000 talent plans, and there's nothing inherently unlawful about the talent plans themselves. However, we have seen through lots of investigations abuse of those talent plans. And essentially, we have situations where it's created a pipeline, in some cases, at major universities, especially at the graduate level, more so than at the undergraduate level, of key intellectual property, sometimes that has dual use potential, flowing back to China for the advancement of its various strategic plans. And the irony is that the U.S. is essentially funding that economic resurgence through various money that it provides to, through grants, et cetera. So I think we do have to be a little bit careful that we don't find ourselves in a situation where essentially U.S. taxpayer money is being misappropriated for the advancement of China's achievement of economic dominance over us.
To what extent is the FBI concerned about the threat of violent activity from an organization like Antifa?
So we are absolutely concerned about violence committed on behalf of any ideology, any extremism. And the key there, though, is the point that I think I made in response to a couple of different questions already, which is, again, the FBI doesn't investigate ideology. We investigate violent criminal activity, and if it's fueled by some ideology, then that's how it gets wrapped into our mandate. And so for us, Antifa, we view as more of an ideology than an organization. We have quite a number, though, I should tell you, of properly predicated investigations of what we categorize as anarchist extremists, people who are trying to commit violent criminal activity that violates federal law. And some of those people do subscribe to what we would refer to as a kind of an Antifa-like ideology. We don't think of Antifa so much as an organization as such, but I think we're saying sort of the same thing.
Although the Bureau has significant tools to go after organizations, criminal enterprises, that engage, that use anonymity, that use masks to carry out violence, groups like the Klan, groups like at times the Mafia, and I will today be sending a letter to you and the Department of Justice asking the department to open a RICO investigation into Antifa because I believe they are engaged in a similar coordinated effort. That letter will likewise focus on some local elected officials who have chosen to deny police protection to their citizens based on political ideology. That is a pattern, sadly, that we have seen with politicians who favored Klan violence, and I think every citizen deserves law enforcement protection regardless of their political ideology.
So you can run and tell that, homeboy.
Nice. Get it done, Ted Cruz. Let's move on to 3471. 59 minutes after the hour of 6. We get yet another Twitter link here to John Solomon Reports. Q says, bigger than most realize. Be ready, Bob. And both of those are in separate brackets. Well, the link here takes you to John Solomon, who's got a Hill article, of course. Breaking: DOJ, Russia review targeting key figure, conclusion in Mueller report. Let's just go ahead and look at the title here. Robert Mueller soon may be exposed as the magician of omission on Russia. While most of the political world focused its attention elsewhere, like Trump 24/7, Special Prosecutor John Durham's team quietly reached out this summer to a lawyer representing European academic Joseph Mifsud, one of the earliest and most mysterious figures in the now closed Russia collusion case. An investigator told Swiss attorney Stephen Rowe that Durham's team wanted to interview Mifsud, or at the very least review a recorded deposition the professor gave in summer of 2018 about his role in the drama involving Donald Trump, Russia, and the 2016 election. The contact, confirmed by multiple sources and contemporaneous email, sent an unmistakable message. Durham, the U.S. attorney handpicked by Attorney General William Barr to determine whether the FBI committed abuses during the Russia investigation, is taking a second look at one of the noteworthy figures and the conclusions of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's final report. The evidence I reviewed suggests Mueller's handiwork may be exposed for glaring omissions that, when brought to public light, leave questions unanswered, especially about how the FBI's unprecedented probe of the Trump campaign started. Durham is focused on determining whether any government or private figures who came in contact with the Trump campaign in 2016 were engaged in improper surveillance. A U.S. official told me when asked about the Mifsud overture. For those who don't remember, Mifsud is a Maltese-born academic with a VIP Rolodex who frequented Rome and London for years and engaged at the highest levels of Western diplomatic and intelligence circles. Yeah, and he's the one that handed off this story to Papadopoulos, who is now a Nicopolis. Mueller concluded that Mifsud was a person with extensive Russia ties who planted the story about the Clinton emails in Moscow and then lied about his dealings with Papadopoulos when interviewed by the FBI in 2017. Papadopoulos has pled guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Mifsud. But unlike others accused of misleading Mueller, including Papadopoulos, former Trump advisor Michael Flynn, and former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, Mifsud was not charged with a crime. So if you'll remember, Mifsud was going to introduce Papadopoulos to Putin's niece, and of course it wasn't her niece. Nobody knows who it was. Probably just some spy, right? Rowe said the idea for introducing the Trump advisor to Russians did not come from Papadopoulos or Russia, but from Mifsud's contacts at Link and LCILP. Likewise, Papadopoulos told me he didn't initially ask to be introduced to Russians, though he eventually engaged in Mifsud's offer. All right, well, you're not trying to hear all this yakety-smackety right now. Here's the meat of the matter. There is now compelling evidence Mueller omitted or misrepresented important facts about Mifsud and Papadopoulos that could change the public's understanding of events. And those aren't the only omissions and factual errors to emerge. And remember, Mueller's going to have to talk about all this stuff. He's going to have to answer questions about this stuff. And of course, if he lies, we can go ahead and just drop the D class. And I think this is why we have not dropped the D class, is because we wanted to put Mueller in this position in particular so that the American people can hear about it. But let's hear about it from the horse's mouth himself. And it's not a real horse, though. It's just John Solomon on Hannity. Check it out.
From John Solomon, The Hill. Well, his investigative report tonight. We now have even more evidence. Mueller omitted key details about mysterious Professor Joseph Mifsud and Trump aide George Papadopoulos from his public report. And it sounds like John Durham is looking to get to the bottom of it all. John Solomon, this is huge, and these questions should be asked tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. I can report tonight that John Durham's investigation, the one that Bill Barr launched, is seeking to interview one of the key witnesses and to challenge one of the key conclusions in the Robert Mueller report. If you remember, Mueller claims that Mifsud and his contacts with Trump campaign aide George Papadopoulos was the ignition point for the whole Russia collusion narrative. Papadopoulos allegedly used Mifsud to get to some Russian contacts and talk about some Russian emails. We now know that Mifsud's lawyer has been contacted by Durham's prosecutors, and he is prepared to provide evidence from his client showing that Mifsud was not some professor. He was a long-term Western intelligence cooperator who was tasked specifically to approach Papadopoulos and introduce him to Russian figures in the spring of 2016. If that is not, if what has been portrayed for the last 3 years as some organic collusion theory was in fact an intelligence operation, it would change everything we know about the start of this case.
Wow. And also, I think questions about your Ukrainian deal and the fact that Ukraine was trying to help Hillary, that's a big deal too, isn't it, John?
It is. It's extraordinary that I have not seen one question in the last 3 or 4 weeks. There is two clear cases of foreign interference in the 2016 election. Christopher Steele was a foreigner who took foreign information from Russia, was paid by Hillary Clinton to try to interfere in our election, and the Ukraine embassy says the Democratic National Committee approached it and asked for its help in trying to interfere with the election.
Does it matter if it's Russia or Ukraine, and they actually have evidence,
or even Great Britain? It doesn't matter. Even Great Britain, the foreigner that Steele is. Those are questions that have not been asked, and Bob Mueller has to be asked, did you look at any of that?
And I don't expect he's going to answer, but it doesn't matter. Republicans need to let the American people know the story that he missed, purposely, in my view.
All right, kids, those are your Q posts. Finally, let me leave you with this. We're on the website of the MAGA Coalition, who's suing QAnon. MAGA Coalition to sue QAnon in multiple jurisdictions. Today, MAGA Coalition Incorporated President Adam Gingrich announced pending litigation to be filed in a federal court to discover the identity of the author of 8chan posts written by Q, or QAnon, and pursue legal recourse on behalf of the nonprofit. The case involves several posts on the 8chan board where QAnon anonymously promulgated a libelous attack on the MAGA Coalition, despite clear and publicly discoverable evidence to the contrary on the Federal Elections Commission website. 4 months ago, a person or persons persons posting on 8chan under a unique trip code identifying as Q made malicious and demonstrably false statements about our federally registered nonprofit, said PAC President Adam Gingrich. These baseless claims were then blasted out in unison through several associated social media accounts to maximize the damage to our ability to function. We hold all these prominent Q accounts along with the 8chan poster accountable for the systemic republication of these defamatory claims. Wait a minute, does that mean me? MAGA Coalition Vice President Glenn Herman went a step further, adding the days of anonymously smearing people and businesses online are over. This legal action will be accompanied by other measures as well. We have here a person or group of people claiming to both work for the President of the United States and to possess top military intelligence clearance. Such claims will be pursued as a matter of course with federal agencies like the FBI and the Secret Service. Serious crimes are being perpetrated here in addition to the civil offenses against our corporate entity. The case will require filings in multiple jurisdictions in addition to the federal lawsuit that will be filed later this month. MAGA Coalition board members acknowledge the gravity of the task as well as the financially crippling impact the defamatory claims have had on the PAC. It gives me no pleasure to put aside our plans to positively contribute to the 2020 elections in order to focus on this litigation, said PAC Treasurer Ginger McQueen. And I want to stop there real quick. Ginger McQueen has long been online also attacking QAnon, actually before QAnon went after them in the first place. Just saying, every attorney we consulted repeated a similar theme, that this action requires demonstrably false attacks on a public forum and having done it explicitly by name. In this case, we have proof of both in spades. The MAGA Coalition is the only corporate entity with legal standing to end the fraudulent activity by exposing the persons who posted as Q in late March 2019. In addition to the damage done to the PAC, this action is necessary to ensure the integrity of political discourse. QAnon adherents are linked to numerous arrests, including 2 alleged murders. I see. So now you're actually playing the same game that you're claiming to be against. All right, so this should be pretty interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Q responds to this somehow, whether it's on the board or if we hear something about this. But this is really interesting. And I actually saw this on the Twitter page of Jack Posobiec, who has long tried to out Q. As a matter of fact, kind of embarrassed himself trying to out Q as this microchip character. But there you go. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. UK liberal tears are flooding the street. Boris Johnson has won the prime ministership. Says, "Thank you for all the incredible honor you have done me. The time for campaigning is over and the time for work begins to unite our country and party, deliver Brexit, and defeat Corbyn." Well, best of luck to you on that. There's still quite a bit of opposition on that, but hopefully it works out. I will work flat out to repay your confidence. So to our friends across the pond, I want to know specifically what you think, because I know there's not a lot of conservatives that totally love this guy, but I don't know. This looks like a tremendous troll job to me, but I have to say that it is at least nice to see it in some conservative hands, and at least somebody will be pushing to deliver Brexit. Whether or not that pays off remains to be seen. But like I said, if you are from over there in the UK, let us know how you feel about this. I would love to see what you think. I will post a top comment and you guys can comment right there. That way you can put it all in one place. All right, kids, that's all I got for you for now. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. If you're new to my channel, welcome to you. Please understand that from time to time, you're going to get unclicked and unnotified and unsubscribed, and it's going to get more and more difficult to find my videos. So I suggest typing in IPOT or IPOT 1776. My alternate links are down below, my Gab, my BitChute, my Real.video, which is now Brighteon.com. I'm over there on DropSpace, and you can find me at Twitter at IPOT 1776. If you're on Twitter, please join me at IPOT 1776. All those links are down below. My email is down below. If you'd like to send something old school, my P.O. box is down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below too. All those links are down below. And I am going to go get something to eat and come back later, and we can hopefully cover some of this Mueller fracas, if you will. All right, Patriots, this is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay aware.